How's it going, everybody? I just finished watching The Move, the latest episode of Big City Greens. If you haven't seen it, it's actually up on Disney Channel right now on YouTube, so you can go check it out. I'll link to that in the description. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you go check it out because it was a really good episode. So, similar to my Owl House and Amphibia videos, I'm going to kind of go over the plot real quick and share my feelings on it, just kind of talk about this episode because I thought it was a really good one. So, to begin, this episode was actually like a 20-minute special, as opposed to the regular 10 to 11-minute runtime for each episode. This one was around 23 minutes. There's a good amount to unpack here, no pun intended. Get it? Because they're moving, that's the funny. So, the episode begins where everyone in Big City is talking about how the Greens are moving, and we see that Bill and Gloria are packing up the truck to leave Big City. And we get this really nice heartwarming moment between Gloria and Bill, where Bill considers Gloria like his third child, which I thought was really sweet because after all they've been through, Gloria is a member of the Green family, which is pretty cool. And then Cricket surprises Bill by jumping out of the truck and knocking over all the boxes that they've packed up. And he says that, oh yep, I'm all packed up. I even got Remy to come with me. And we get an answer to one of the questions I've been looking for a while. I was quite confused about why Remy was coming with them to the country, but it turns out Remy's parents are allowing him to stay in the country as a sort of study abroad program to kind of see what the country's all about. That was like my main theory about what was going to be happening with Remy coming with them on this trip, so I was right about that, which is pretty cool. And we also figure out what Vasquez is up to. He's basically getting some time off that he doesn't even want. Like, he's clearly sad about not being by Remy's side, but that's unfortunate for him, but I'm sure they'll be back. And then we get a nice heartwarming moment with Grandma where she's sad to see everybody go. Then Nancy appears and says, oh, I'll be still living in my RV, but I'll bring it to the country. And she like also packs the animals in the RV, which is really funny. So like they transfer all the animals from the farm on their RV, which is really weird. But regardless, then we get this nice little segment where you hear a very slowed down version of the theme song, and it just shows them driving off. And then it just shows like Big City Greens. It's a nice little title card to the episode. The next scene shows the whole family being excited about moving back to the country, and Cricket's made a brochure for Remy because Remy likes brochures and he can check out all the stuff that the country's all about. And then the whole family starts breaking out into this nice song, which I probably can't play because I'll get copyrighted, but it's a really fun song, and I really like this song because I'm not somebody who's from the country, but I've been out in the country a lot because I used to be a Boy Scout. And the country means a lot to me too, because I would always go camping like once a month with my Boy Scout troop. And when I was older, I would take these trips that would last like multiple weeks, like summer camps. I went to the Boy Scouts' biggest camp called Philmont in New Mexico, and I did a 20-day program out there called Rayado. And being out in the country without any electronic devices, it's really a special feeling. And when I heard them start singing this song, it sounded very similar to one of the songs I heard out on this program. It kind of brought me back to that vibe where I was sitting in this cabin after like hiking for 10 miles a day, and it was rainy and cold and no one was in a good mood. But then we all got in this cabin and it was like super late at night. It was like 10 p.m. or something, and that was light for out there. It was like completely dark. And then this like group of 6 people just puts on a performance, and it's really hard to see them. Like there's the only thing lighting up the entire cabin is one little lantern in the front of the room, and you just get to hear them play these songs.
What have they done to the old home place? Why did they tear us down? And why did I leave my drill in the mine and look for a job in the town?
This part of that peaceful life was my great front porch swing, where I'd sit back, just relax, not worry about a thing.
And it just felt like a reward for all your hard work. And like, I'm not even the biggest fan of sort of country or bluegrass music, specifically bluegrass, I guess. But this song, and I feel like it's like a vibe that you kind of have to just get into at times. And when I heard this song, it brought me back to that moment. And I don't know why I'm talking about this specifically. I just like talking about my own experiences while also talking about these shows. So I just think it's something nice to add. But anyway, when I heard the song, it just brought me back to that moment, and it just kind of made me relate to the Green family, knowing how special the country can be to somebody, because the country is also special to me. Even though I don't live in the country, I would visit it all the time on camping trips, and it became, I guess, a part of you, like kind of what Dirt Dry was saying. The country will always be a part of you, and I would say to an extent it's a part of me through Boy Scouts. So anyway, that's my little experience. Anyway, back to the episode. The whole family breaks out in song, talking about their favorite parts of the country. Cricket talks about how he loves being like the king of nature. Bill talks about how he just loves the sights and how it's a much less stressful experience. And then Tilly, it's frickin' Tilly. What do you think she's gonna sing about? She's gonna sing about her furry friends, the animals, of course. It's a really fun song. And then the Greens finally arrive back at their old home, and immediately, just because the trailers were saying like, oh, things are going wrong, I immediately thought something bad was gonna happen, but no. I mean, not yet, but like, it was just a nice little experience to see them right up into their house, and it just seems like a very nice, like, wow, we're finally here moment. It didn't immediately erupt into chaos, it was just like, wow, we're finally here. And I like that it gave it that moment before just jumping into the funny plot. So, they get back into their house, Bill sees his swing, and he's like, oh, I'm coming for you later. And they're all going back in their house, and they start reminiscing about all the things that they've missed. And then Tilly starts to realize that something is off about the country and their old home, and no one really realizes it yet. Tilly's the first one to catch on. Remy starts looking around the house, being very attracted to all these things, and he's like, hey, look at these wooden sculptures over here, Mr. Green. And then Bill's like, oh, I made those. Yeah, those are those things that I made, because he talked about it in the song. And it turns out there's a freaking actual live deer among all of his sculptures, and it starts going absolutely crazy. It just wrecks the whole place. And then this is my favorite, honestly, best gag of the episode right here. I love this.
All right, get out of here, dear.
Bill's face and just jumps straight through the window. I love it. And like the deer is completely unfazed after it jumps through a window. It's just, I love it. I love that gag. And not only does it work as a gag, but it also starts to kick off Bill's obsession with fixing things around the house. So what Bill talked about on his song is that being back in the country was like a perfect time for him. He was much less stressed, as we could see. Like, he's super stressed all the time. But the second he gets back to the country and the deer breaks the window, he's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna fix this thing right now. And Nancy's like, can't you just do it later? Why don't you just relax? We just got back. And he's like, oh, no, I've got to fix it right now. So he gets out his toolbox, ready to fix the window, and starts realizing there's more problems than just the window. There's leaky pipes, there's wooden floorboards that aren't positioned correctly. And he's like, well, gonna have to get to work and fix this all today. While Bill's starting to fix things up, Cricket and Tilly visit their old room, show Remy around, and they also show him Cricket's escape route, which is a tree back in the country. You know how he has like his little bottom of the drawer thing at Grandma's house? Here he has a tree. Except this time, when he tries to escape onto the tree, he immediately falls off of it. And when Tilly tries to talk to the squirrel neighbors that apparently they used to know, they start throwing nuts at her, and they fall off the window too. This is when Cricket starts agreeing with Tilly and realizes that, hey, something isn't right about this place. Tilly brings up a suggestion saying that they need to do something that they used to do to feel at home in the country again, to which Cricket has the idea to visit the treehouse. And the treehouse is something that they used to hang out in when they were kids, that they built themselves. And they were talking about it on the ride over. Cricket was showing Remy pictures of it in the brochure, which is pretty neat. So they go out into the woods, start having a little adventure. Cricket starts realizing that he can't chop wood like he used to. He was talking about in the song that he could chop wood. There's a lot of things that happen in the song that reference, but I can't really show the song because I'll probably get copyrighted. But like I was saying, Cricket said he could like chop wood with his bare hands, so he tries to do that and fails. While that's happening, Bill has literally become Fix-It Felix and starts trying to fix everything in the entire house. And then there's another funny gag where he fixes a cupboard door and then immediately the rest of the cupboard just falls apart.
This old cabinet door was busted, but I fixed it right up.
It's very funny. And this whole time Nancy's trying to get him to relax, but Bill's not having it. Back to the kids, they're making their way toward the fort, to which they encounter a patch of poison oak, and Cricket brags about how, since he's been in the country for so long, his feet are now immune to stepping on poison oak, since he's just stepped on a ton of stuff. So he clears a path for the others with his feet, and then immediately his feet become inflamed by the poison oak, which it never takes that long. It usually takes a little while, but whatever. And this whole time, Cricket thinks it's just nature playing a trick on them because they just got back, and it's like, oh, very funny, nature. All these things are different. You can stop now. You can go back to normal now. And then back to Bill and Nancy. Bill has gone absolutely crazy this time. He has started multitasking and trying to fix everything all at once, to which Nancy forces Bill to take a break. She literally forces him to sit on his swing, literally drawing his name on the swing. There's another stupid gag with like Bill's butt plant on the swing, and then she writes ILL next to the butt plant because it looks like a B. It's actually a pretty funny gag. So she takes his tools and forces him to relax and locks him outside of the house so he can't even come inside and fix the stuff. Back to the kids once again, they run into this little rabbit that Tilly recognizes, and she starts trying to talk to it like she always used to, and we get the perspective of the rabbit, and it has no idea what she's talking about. It kind of reminds me of like Sokka through Momo's eyes, for example. It's pretty creepy. But the rabbit runs away, and Tilly thinks that the rabbit's trying to lead them to the fort, since she asked can you take us to the fort? And then instead of taking them to the fort, it leads them to a giant like pack of a bunch of different animals, to which Tilly is like, oh, don't worry, I can reason with them. And she gets up on the stump and tries singing a little song to them like she used to, and all they do is start getting angry and they start chasing everybody, to which they jump off this little hill and land in this creek. And then Remy's like, huh, where are we? Do you even know where we are? And then Cricket says, no, don't say it. You can't say it. To which Tilly screams, we're lost. And now, yep, they're lost in the woods. And none of them are taking this well. Cricket starts freaking out and he's like, I've never been lost before. I'm the king of the country. I need to reclaim my throne. I'm gonna have to eat my best friend. It's like he just starts panicking because he's supposed to be, you know, the king of the woods. And yet this whole day has just been going wrong for them. So, although while Cricket's freaking out, Remy spots some interesting leaves coming down from the creek and says that those are sycamore leaves, and if we follow those up the creek, it'll lead us to the fort. So they start heading up the creek. And while that's happening, Nancy is just inside saying, oh, well, this place definitely does need some cleaning up, but we don't have to do it right away. And Bill busts through the door and just like starts crawling around like crazy. He even like climbs on the wall, steals his tool belt back from Nancy, and it's going absolutely insane, trying to fix everything all at once. This scene is just so funny. But back once again to the kids, they start making their way toward the fort, recognizing some landmarks like a stump that looks like grandma for some reason, and then they finally reach the fort, and they find that the fort has been, well, pretty much destroyed. A lot of the wood has fallen off, it's caved in on itself, and you can see that this really bums out Cricket and Tilly. This whole day has been going wrong. Nothing's the same in the country anymore. That's what they keep saying throughout this whole time. Everything's different, nothing's the same. So things aren't going too well from them. And then we get back to Nancy and Bill. The insane Bill just has like a bunch of tasks written all over his arms. I swear he's like a freaking Infinity Train character at this point with all that stuff on his arms. That's the first thing I thought of, was like Bill Infinity Train. Anyway, he goes absolutely insane, steals his tool belt back from Nancy, and says, I'm gonna fix everything in his house and nobody can stop me. But when he does, he knocks over a lamp, which in turn triggers a chain reaction, and everything in the entire house just breaks. Everything, dude. Everything that he fixed, everything is destroyed, and he just watches it happen. And then Bill finally steps away from his insanity and just says, well, when we moved back to the country, I thought all my problems would be solved. But turns out that's just not the case. Look at all these problems. And then Nancy's like, oh, that's why you wanted to fix everything right now. Because if everything was fixed on the first day, he could just live all the coming days in peace. He wouldn't have to worry about all the problems. So he's like, oh, if I fix it all now, there will be none later. So that's why he was going so crazy about it. And then we get this line, which I really, really liked, which kind of brings together both parties, both Bill and Nancy, and then the kids.
Just always problem after problem. It's just
so overwhelming.
And honestly, I really, really liked this part of the episode because that's kind of the case. This felt like a grass is always greener on the other side sort of situation where, have you ever had this feeling where, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I definitely can, where you feel like, I just got to get through this week and then things will be better. Or it's like, I have to get these things done, then I can relax. Or I can have to do this first, then I can do this. But no, that's not always the case. There's always going to be problems. People always have problems no matter where you are in the world. There's never going to be a completely problematic free life. There's always going to be something you don't feel content with. Like nothing's going to be perfect and things change. And I really, really liked that from this episode. That line delivery right there was just so good because it just feels like sometimes it can get really overwhelming. Like for the kids, so much has changed from their old home and it's completely overwhelming them. They're just not used to all these big changes. Whereas with Bill, the dude's always so stressed out. And sometimes you feel that right now you have to get all these things done or else you can't relax. But maybe sometimes the best thing to do is just relax right now. Because you can't just get all this stuff done and worry about relaxing later, because what is that going to do to you right now? Sometimes right now, the best thing to do is just take a break and relax, at least for Bill. And then this is probably where the best part of the episode kicks in, where Remy climbs up on the treehouse and Cricket's like, Remy, get down from there, you're gonna break your leg. And Remy gets up there. He looks out from the top of the treehouse and he still says, well, the view still looks great, and this wood's still good, why don't we just rebuild the fort? To which Cricket responds, it's not just the fort, everything in this place has changed, and it feels like it's not our home anymore. And then Remy responds with a really heartwarming speech saying that, hey, we haven't even been back that long, and even so, while you were gone, things changed here, but you guys have also changed too, and that's okay. Things aren't gonna go back to normal right away. You don't have to rush it. And then he finishes with a really nice line. I'll let Remy himself say it.
It won't happen right away, but I promise, if you give it time and remember what you loved about the country in the first place, you'll feel at home again soon.
And I just think that's so nice, because Bill, the thing he was talking about in his song was that he loved watching the sunset, or just like the views from the country. And I think that visual paired really, really well with Remy's speech, so that's exactly what happens. The kids start working, trying to rebuild the fort, and then Nancy and Bill watch the sunset on the swing, and then the kids come home and they all watch it together, and Grandma gives them a call. And she's like, oh, how's the country? Is it just like you remember? And Bill's like, well, not exactly. It's a little different, but we're gonna get there. To which Cricket's like, yeah, darn right we will. It was a bit rough at first, but, you know, this is our home, and it feels good to be back. And that's where it ends. And we get like a nice little different credits, where the credits is a little similar, but it's got different little images of just now, instead of them being in the house, it's now at the country, so... I just think this episode was a really nice little heartwarming episode, especially the message that it had, where I think it's a lot about how everything changes. Nothing will always stay the same, and I really like that. Even if it's like you're going back to your old home, it's not gonna be the same. Like, for example, I can relate to this because I actually just moved out of my house around a month and a half ago, and when I paid a visit back to my old house, like around a week ago, there are a lot of different things. Like, I used to live in the basement, and now the basement has been rearranged. There's a bunch of different stuff down there. A lot of stuff is gone. It just felt really weird. And I think it's a really good message to the show, where everything's constantly changing. No matter where you are, nothing is going to stay the same. Like, you want to go back to somewhere to visit maybe old memories, but that entire place has changed without you there. So, like, things change all the time, and so do you. And I think the entire message of this episode was really effective. Even though there are a lot of silly shenanigans, I think it was just a really solid, heartwarming episode. And even though things have changed, they still think it's good to be back in their old home, because they can readapt to their old home with its new changes. Like, it's still the same place, but with a fresh coating of paint, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just really wanted to talk about this episode because I thought it was really unique and really fun. So yeah, that'll be about it. Let me know what you thought about this episode. It's up on YouTube, so once again, you can just go watch it. I'll link it down in the description if you're interested. So yeah, that'll be it for me. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.